Hi, Wanda. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 2 of Teach Your Guitar to Sing. And I'm going to start by reviewing just a couple things quickly, and then we'll head into some new material and addressing a couple of songs that are different than we did in episode 1. So the purpose of this workshop is to add more life and emotion and vitality and dimension to your ordinary everyday guitar playing using pretty much techniques that are well within the skill set that you already have. They're not major departures. You don't have to practice something for 3 months before you'll be able to use it. It's mostly things that you can work on for a couple of days and be able to start to put them in one by one. And as you get a little more familiar with each one, you'll be able to put them in multiples. But we'll be working a little faster than you'll be able to actually embrace each of the techniques. But the main thing is that you understand what we're talking about and know which techniques to practice. And you can always go to YouTube and review the video of any of these episodes to find some of the techniques that you might be particularly interested in working on. So with that said, the elements that we covered last week were, the first one was high-low accenting and high-low accenting. By the way, I'm capoed at the 5th fret at the moment. So if you want to capo at the 5th fret and play a G chord, if you want to sort of review any of this with me, you're welcome to do that. So high-low accenting is you can accent using the bottom couple strings or the upper several strings. And you can alternate between those two zones. This is a part of what I call zone strumming. And we're just using 2 zones for now. So if you use the low zone as an accent, it's kind of like doing a bass strum with thumb strumming. But that gives you a good distinguished tone and a little bit of volume change. You can push that accent a little harder. And that gives you an emphasis on the 1 beat. We also looked at you could emphasize on the 1 and the 3. You can actually emphasize any one of the beats that you choose to, depending on what kind of a rhythm effect you're trying to develop in the song. So with the accent on 1 and 3. And we also saw that you could alternate from the low zone to the high zone, which accentuates that accent even more. So rather than low zone and all the strings, I could do low zone, high zone. And when you're working with a rhythm, you could play for a little while in the low zone and a little while in the high zone. You can even alternate low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high. And that gives you almost a finger-picking kind of alternating sound, even though you're strumming. So that's high-low accenting. We talked about adding upstrums. If you're doing a steady beat, you can add upstrums in between any of the downstrums. Your hand is coming back up anyway, so it's just a matter of reaching in and catch the strings. And that means that you could have upstrum after 1, upstrum after 2, upstrum after 3, upstrum after 4, or all of them, or just some of them. And that's part of what we call free strumming. And that's something that is very useful for controlling what I like to refer to as the rhythmic density of your song. Rhythmic density means how full or sparse it might be, how busy or more open the rhythm might be. We're going to talk about that more a little bit later. Then the third thing we looked at was cutting off. Cutting off is if you're fingering a chord, especially if it has a couple fingers over on the lower strings. I'm going to do the full C chord here, where I have 6th string and 5th string both covered with my 3rd finger and my pinky. If I strum the chord and then release it, the open strings continue to ring, but the fingered strings cut off. And that cutting off is itself kind of an accent, and you can also use it to punctuate a strum. You can also let your fingers sort of flop over and hit the other strings. See how I'm flopping my fingers over, doing a really sloppy chord there. Relaxed. Just eased off pressure and flopped over. And that magnifies that cutting off effect. We talked about hammering on a chord. If I was going to do an E minor, I could go open strings and then hammer the chord on. Da-doom, 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 da-doom. I like to do the D with my thumb wrapped around on the 6th string at the 2nd fret. And I've got a pretty small hand, so if you work with your hand position, get your hand around a little bit this way, and then you can get your thumb up there and just get kind of right in the corner of your thumb there. Just kind of wrap that over just enough to catch that string. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to hold it down there, and that gives you that low F sharp on the D chord. And that means you can use those bottom strum, low zone things on the D, and when you cut, it gives you a little more cutting off on the D chord. The last thing we did is a kind of a little bit of an esoteric technique that I call the flying palm mute. People might have other names for it, but basically what it is, a palm mute is when you rest the palm of your hand on the strings just in front of the bridge, so that you would get kind of a plunky, muted sound. That's why we call that a mute. If you move that a little farther, you get almost nothing from the strings. But right in front of the bridge, they still kind of ring, but all the highs are filtered off. And if you strum a chord and then bring your hand in just as you strum it and kind of pull it away. So I have to do it in time here. Work on that. What that does is that gives you kind of a ringing after sound. If I try to do it by itself, I just can't do it. It's kind of like a muted low zone. So that was the third technique that we talked about last time. If anybody has any questions, please enter them into the chat, and I will try to catch them on the fly and read them. If I don't catch it the first time, put it in all caps a little later, and I will pause when you're playing things. I'll try to scan through the chat and be able to pick up people's questions, but I'm not 100% confident that I get all the participants in the chat that I'm viewing here. So bear with me on that. The other thing is, if you need to contact me at all, you can reach me at bob@folkproject.org. This is an acoustic stay away program brought to you by the Folk Project, Acoustic Stay Away. And I'm really happy to be working with the Folk Project on that. That's an organization that's near and dear to my heart. I've been a long-time member. And so bob@folkproject.org is the place that you can reach me with questions. And if you go to my website, which is strumstick.com, there's a stay-at-home resources page where I have this workshop and some other things that I'm doing listed out there. And I will be putting some resources from this workshop on the Teach Your Guitar to Sing, TYGS, page that you can find from those stay-at-home stay-at-home resources things on my website. So there's a couple of ways you can get some additional information or ask questions of me directly. Okay, so the song we're going to work on to start today, let's take the episode away and go to The Wait. Robbie Robertson with the band. And we're going to finger this in key of G so that I have half a prayer of kind of monitoring the words by singing. I'm capoed up at the 5th fret here, so that's why I'm up here. So the first thing we want to look at, the chords are G, B minor, G, B minor, C, and G for the intro. So it goes around that a couple of times. And the rhythm for this is I'm going to do it a little slower. People might be familiar with it a little bit faster, but we're going to take it slow so when you play along, you'll be able to stay with me even as you're thinking about the new things that we're covering. So let's take that even a little bit slower there. And you might not perform it that slow unless you liked it really spaced out, but this is a good tempo for us to work on it at. Now that basic rhythm, that bum, da-da-da-da-da-da, bum, da-da-da-da-da-da, you could do that all through the whole song, but one thing about this song in particular is it's got basically the same chords with a little bit of variation at the chorus for, 147 verses this song has, something like that. I think it's about 8 verses or 6. So you're automatically in a situation where what the guitar is doing is going to be monotonous and repetitive right from the get-go, because you're doing a fairly simple sequence of chords that happens the same way on 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in a row, and then a little bit of change at the chorus, and then back to those 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. So this is a place where having some variation in the texture and variation in the rhythm and variation in the accenting and even variations in the very tone that you're playing those chords with can be really important. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to reach right for our handy high-low accenting and take that same boom, da-da-da-da-da-da, boom, da-da-da-da-da rhythm, and we're going to try to do a little high-low on it. And this is kind of almost a classic Carter Family kind of sound, or Woody Guthrie sound, where we're hitting the low notes, but instead of a single note, we're getting a bit of a chord sound. Also, when I play G, I like to do this G, but I add the D note, that's the 3rd fret on the 2nd string, and then I put my pinky on the 1st string 3rd fret where my 3rd finger was. So I like having that very droney D, G, D, G sound, where the only B, the 3rd of the chord, is down here in the bottom. So it's compared to, you don't hear that da 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 da, you hear da 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 da. That's completely a matter of taste, but that's something that you can even change in the course of a song. You can play the normal G or the G with the extra D on the top. So if you see me doing that, that's what I'm doing. So let's play through just that intro, the G, B minor, C, G, C, a couple times on the C, and then back around G, B minor, C, G, C again. We'll take that slow and work bass, high, 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 bass, higher, 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 bass, higher, 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 bass, higher, higher, low, higher, higher, low, higher, higher, that kind of a rhythm. So let's give that a try. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's probably even a little faster. Let's take it even slower. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, you will practice that bass, high, high. Just hold the same chord and do that until you start to get a little bored. I always say, let boredom be your guide. When you're challenged by a new technique, you are rarely bored. You may be frustrated, you may be struggling sometimes, but if you're challenged, you're not bored. Now, when you start to get a little bored, that's when you're almost ready to take this technique out on the road, but not quite. You want to work a little bit into the bored zone, because you want techniques to be not just at the limit of your ability to do it, but you want them to be kind of old hat, like they just roll off your tongue, so to speak. So when you work this rhythm with the low, high accenting, you know, sit in front of your favorite episode of Game of Thrones and play that through the whole scene, and let it get into your muscle memory, and kind of listen to it as you do it, but you want to get it as a reflex. So we're not going to have time to do that now. I'm going to play through this slowly one more time so you can do that rhythm, and then we'll move to the next element for this. 1, da 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 da, 2, da 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 da, 3, da 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 da, 4. Then when we go into the song, the chords changed ever so slightly. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned, shook my hand, and no was all he said. So that's basically going through the verse with that low-high rhythm. Now, the first thing we want to do to start to add some texture to this, we'll keep that low-high, but let's take some of the upstrums out. So we're not doing da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da every single time. Maybe go boom, da-da-da, boom, da-da-da, boom, da-da-da, boom, da-da-da, boom, da-da-da, or boom, da-da-da-da. That's probably, let's do that. Boom, da-da-da-da, boom, da-da-da-da. That's down, down, up, down, down. We'll keep all four down strums, and we'll just skip hitting the strings on some of those up strums towards the end there. So it's down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 down. Instead of down, down, up, down, up, down, up. See how it's a little busier when I go down, down, up, down, up, down, up. So we got boom, down, up, down, down, boom, down, up, down, 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 boom, down, down, down. Just need some place where I can lay my head. You could even just do all four down strums once in a while. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? And I'll bring in, he just grinned and shook my hand, and no was all he said. And then bring in all the up strums after that G chord, where that chord is hanging out with no words happening. So you want to think about your guitar part. One of the things it does is it makes space and framing for the words that you're singing. Sometimes you will want to like directly echo the rhythm of the words in order to really punctuate that rhythm, so that your guitar might go exactly what you said. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? Da, 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 da. But other times, you might want to have just kind of a coasting in the background with not directly doing the same rhythm as the words, but something that's changing a little bit as you move through, so that it keeps holding your interest and the interest of whoever might be listening to you play. So let's take this through slowly. We'll start with just a steady beat. So we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, down, 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 down. And then as we go through the lines, you don't have to sing it while you're trying to do this. That's asking, it's enough for me to sing it. That's asking a lot. So just add up strums in once in a while as you've got that bed of mostly down strums. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 da 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 da, 1 da da da, 1 da da da, 1 da da da. Now I'm going to take it from the top. I pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need a place, little up strums, where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me, still just a few, where men might find a bed? He just grinned and shook my hand, and no was all he said. And notice it got a little busier as I went through. So I'm going to play that one time without talking. And I'll just kind of sing the words to keep us where we are. And let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need a place where a man might find a bed, where I could lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned, shook my hand, and no was all he said. And then again, to kind of pick it up in the open spaces where there's room at the end of the verses sometimes. And then the chorus, take a load off Fanny, take a load for free, take a load off Fanny, and you put the load right on me. Sorry. So we could start that whole chorus with just single strums. Take a load off Fanny. And I'm doing the D chord. Some people play the B minor chord the same as in the verse. G, B minor, C. Take a load off Fanny. The D chord shares a lot of notes with the B minor chord. It's a little different flavor. So you could use the D or the B minor there if you like. The B minor is the relative minor of D. D is the relative major of B minor. So they're close neighbors musically. And you can make the decision. And I do the D there because I'm fingering the low F sharp here. And the bass line that goes with that part of the song is boom, boom, boom. So you've got take a load off Fanny. Now if you're doing the bar B minor, you can still get that F sharp. Take a load off Fanny. Take a load for free. Take a load off Fanny. So that's up to you, the D or the B minor. But if you're doing this B minor, you won't be getting the bass notes in there. Take a load off Fanny. Take a load for free. So let's take that at tempo. We'll take he just grinned, shook my hand, and no is all he said. So we get into the chorus from the verse. He just grinned, shook my hand, no is all he said. Take a load off Fanny, take a load for free, take a load off Fanny, and the load right on me. And those little turnaround chords, G, B minor, C, G, C. Sometimes I'll do an E minor instead of that C after the B minor. G, G, G. So G, B minor, G, C. That's another little optional change you could make in the chords to get a little variety in there. So we'll take that again. He just grinned. 1, 2, 3, 4. He just grinned and shook my hand, and no was all he said. Take a load off Fanny, take a load for free, take a load off Fanny, and you put the load right on me. And you know, I may put an extra beat on the and in there. I just do that sometimes. That's not saying that you should do that or that it's a good idea to do that. But if you do that, do it with gusto. Let's see. I almost couldn't stop myself because I started to do some of that flying, what do they call it? The flying palm mute in there. Let's go to adding some hammer-on chords before we add that in. And that would be, if we start with the G, that would be the hammer-on for the G at the top of the song. Pulled into Nazareth. Now, hammering on a B minor chord with a bar is kind of you're going to have to practice that for a while. But if you hammer on just kind of the middle of the regular B minor, it's kind of an odd sound if you just hear it all by itself. Interesting, but it's different. But when you fly through that, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. So even though you've got just a plain old open everything as the first strum of each of those 4 chords, because the hammer-on comes in immediately, it smooths it right out, and it makes a nice tonal accent there. Ba-dum. Not just the rhythm accent, but a tonal accent, because that... You hear the chord change there, creating a tonal accent. So, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Now, if I add the high-low that we were doing before with that, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Do you see how there's almost a counter melody starts to come out of the guitar? Just listen to that without me talking. And that's almost like having two guitars talking back and forth as you go through, and that makes a very interesting texture. And I'm going to talk about that texture in just a moment. I call that same sound, different sound rhythms is one way to talk about it. And let's take it through from the top, and I'll play the whole thing slowly. We'll go all the way through. Try hammering on a chord here and there where you can, and you could even try it as we go through the chorus. One more thing on the chorus. I'm going to interrupt myself. If you're doing just the single strums with no up strums and not even all the down strums, 1, 2, 1, instead of 1, 1, 1 on the chorus. By the time you get to the end, take a low for free, 2, 3, 4. There's a long space there. Make sure you're holding time in your head or tapping your foot or feeling the beat strongly, because you don't want to rush that long empty space. There's a real tendency when there's long empty spaces to rush into the next thing, because sitting there doing nothing is harder than keeping a beat. One of the ways to avoid that is you can do fake down strums where you're not doing a strum. So when I got to that C at the end, G, D, C, G, fake, D, fake, C, fake, fake, fake. That way you're keeping time with your hand. That's actually the thing doing the strumming, and you're doing the same motion as when you're strumming, but you're not hitting the strings. So end of interruption, back to the top. We're going to do that hammer on chords and that alternating high-low. And so we're now putting two elements together, and they're both a little bit complex. So don't worry if you can only do one or do the other. You could alternate them, but you'll be able to do them together after you've practiced them a bit by yourself. So, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling kind of half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned and shook my hand, and no was all he said. Take a load off Fanny's, or take a load for free. Take a load off Fanny, and you put the load right on me. Okay, so I hope you did that better than I did, because I didn't do the hammer-on all the chords, and then I didn't do the single down strums when we got to the chorus. I got carried away with the rhythm that was evolving. And that actually illustrates that's the way I'm trying to show you how to play, where as you start creating a rhythm, the rhythm can create, and when I say rhythm in this case, I mean the whole package, the rhythm, the accents, whatever extra little things you're doing in there, like hammering on the chords, that rhythm group that you're doing can start to take on a life of its own, and you can actually follow it. I call that, driving your car to Emotionville, because each of those little elements has an impact on the emotion of the song. And if you are feeling the song as you're playing it, and the things that you're doing are stimulating your own emotions as you do it, it's almost like a feedback loop where the rhythm stimulates the emotion, and the emotion moves you to another rhythm. Now, that's not an intellectual process. That's just you get used enough to doing these, and it feels good to do that. So that was what was happening to me in that last section, which I intended to do. Okay, so there we've taken a couple of the techniques that we worked on in episode 1, and we've reviewed them now in episode 2 when we've started to put them in this song. One of the things that's, I think, really important with this song too, besides simply adding interest, is avoiding what I call the wallpaper effect. And what I mean by wallpaper is, if you have a wall and you have a pretty little flower on the wall, you see it as a pretty little flower. You look at the color of the flower blossom and you look at the color of the leaves, maybe the bend to the stem, but you see it as an object. But if you have a wall that's entirely covered with little rosebuds with bendy stems and 2 leaves on them, and some are going, this way, and some are going this way, and some of them are upside down, and some are wrapped into the other one, like they do on wallpaper, and shrink it way down, now you don't see those flowers as flowers. You see wallpaper. You see a pattern, a kind of a, almost like dots on the wall, and you look close. Oh yeah, it's roses. How nice! That looks really good. Very Victorian, maybe. But the wallpaper effect is, if you have a good trick and you do it over and over again, it turns into wallpaper, and it's no longer a good trick. The thing that you did that brought interest or drama to a certain part of the song, if you do that over and over in a row, it no longer brings drama. You burn it out. So that's the wallpaper effect. So if we play the hammering on the chord and the alternating high-low all the way through that verse without changing, that's about as far as we're going to be able to stretch that without doing something different in the next verse. And it would even probably be better if you did something different even in that verse. So, to Nazareth, I was feeling down, half past dead. Just need some place where a man may find a bed. Can you tell me where a man may find a bed? See, I'm starting to lose interest about there when I get to the 4th time through that same rhythm. So you don't have to use all your tricks at the same time. You will want to avoid single trick overkill. You want to avoid creating a blurry background where there's no longer something interesting to kind of ride along as the song happens. It just turns into a steady mush. And that's what we're trying to avoid by having these tricks in the first place. For sure, if I just went, and then to Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned and shook my hand, and no was all he said. You've got 2 things going on there. You've got a set of 4 chords, which sound attractive, and you've got the words and the melody that are interesting. But that background just becomes like, you might as well have, plain white background and say the words in front of them. So the objective of what we're trying to accomplish with Teach Your Guitar to Sing is to keep a varying texture, an interesting varying texture, and especially an interesting varying texture that works with the emotion you're trying to communicate at at a given section of the song. And we're not talking too much about the emotional impact of each of these things yet, because if you're still learning how to just get them into the song in the first place, it's not the time to be deciding which one to use and how to change them for emotional effect. But we will be doing more and more of that as the series goes on. And we're going to do a little bit of that right now as I introduce this idea of what I call 1-sound rhythms and 2-sound rhythms. And another way of referring to that is what you could call the difference between what I call, let's say, actual tempo and effective tempo. So the way we'll do this, if you were to strum a given rhythm with all down strums, let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of a fast beat. We're not going to be doing up strums at the moment. We're just going to do down strums at this particular thing. So we're going to go down, 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 down. So let's just do that for a moment. Whatever chord. Let's do the G chord. We're here at the 5th fret anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do that together. I'll hold my timing a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. certain kind of sound, down, 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 down. It's got a certain insistence to it, especially at that actual tempo. If each of those down strums is a beat, our actual tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, moderately fast. Now suppose instead of going down, 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 suppose I went down, up, down, up. I kept the same count, 1, 2, 3, 4, but I did down, up, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, usually we're calling that up strum an and in between numbers, but now for this thing, let's just call it the number 2, the number 4. So we have down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, 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 down, up. Now let's shift to all down. Same actual count. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now stop strumming if you're strumming now at home, and listen to what this sounds like. Hi there, Nancy. Thanks for coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, down. And you notice how it sounds almost as though I slowed down by half, because your ear got used to hearing that down, 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 down as like push, 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 and now it's push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. So when you have alternating sounds in a given sequence of elements of a rhythm, remember a rhythm is simply events that are spaced in time in some way that we find interesting, often repetitive. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's a rhythm we call a steady beat. Now, if I change the way my voice sounds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a different feeling to that rhythm, even though the actual spacing of sounds and times is the same. So, as we did with the strumming thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So, when we do the alternating low-high accenting, there, this one here. That's a different feel to the rhythm than if I just stay all in the high after I do the low accent. Can you feel it push just a little bit more when I go boom, dee 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 dee, boom, dee 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 dee, instead of boom, dee dee, boom, dee dee, boom, dee dee, boom, dee dee dee, boom, dee dee, boom, dee dee dee, boom, dee dee, boom, dee dee dee. So the way we use both the high-low accenting and adding in upstrums and leaving upstrums out, the way we work those two together changes the rhythm density. There's either a lot going on, there's less going on. If we want to push the drive ahead a little bit, instead of doing the alternating, we can stay all in the low or all in the high. So when you make a rhythm with a closer to a single sound, I realize there's downs and ups in there, but they're all in the bass zone. That has a little more push, a little more drive to it than if you open it up by doing the exact same rhythm with alternating flavors of sounds. So when you work with that, I think you'll hear directly what I'm demonstrating here. You'll have to get to the point where you can actually play it without being so involved with thinking about how to do it that you're not able to hear it. So be patient. But that's an important element, variant that we're going to use in order to start to construct an emotional map for the song we're going to play. Now, I'm going to stay with these same couple of techniques and do a little emotional mapping as we go through the first 4 lines of the song. So the first line is the introduction. You could start it slow and low. You could start it high and busy. you'll want to go someplace from that. But I think starting kind of in the middle of how busy you might be is a good way to start it. So if you're going to go, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. You're saying I'm feeling about half past dead. So it's a kind of a lazy, you almost lag the beat a little maybe in there. So if you play kind of sluggishly, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Maybe be a little sloppy and don't even hit all the strings, and maybe don't go fast across the strings. Maybe kind of blur it. Blah, 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 boom, blah, 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 boom. But that has a kind of a sluggish feeling to it. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. And here we might pull in the middle zone. Remember I said low-high accenting was an example of zone strumming. You can go low, whoops, you can go high, but you can also go middle. So just on a G chord, you got boom, 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 boom. So each of those zones has lends a different flavor to the chord you're strumming. So if I start the song kind of just doing a little bass accent and then maybe staying in the middle, it keeps it a little contained. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Now, the second verse, I could do exactly the same as the first, and I'm not going to get the wallpaper effect from it. But let's just say we want to have it open up a little bit. If you think about this was a movie, the guy's, I don't know, is he pulling in on a horse? Is he pulling in on a horse and buggy? Is he driving in a fancy sports car? Is he driving an old pickup truck? We don't really know. But he's pulling into that. Maybe he got off a train. But he's come into Nazareth. He's feeling about half past dead, and he just needs someplace he could lay his poor head. So there's a little more urgency on that second line than on the first line. Now, you don't have to over-intellectualize it. Just think about what the words mean to you, and think about what your experience would be if you were the person in the song that's singing it, or if you were writing the words of the song like a movie. So at this point, it might be a close-up of him as he kind of pulls up and you see the steering wheel, feeling about half past dead, maybe shaking his head like, man, I got to get out of this car. And then the camera would pull back and it would show him stepping out of the car and just looking around while the word said, I got to find a place where I can lay my head. I'm beat. The way you can pull back a little is bring a little more activity in to the strumming. So we're kind of doing sloppy. Maybe we sharpen it up a little bit. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. You might even, I'm going to interrupt myself, you might even get sloppy with the beat on that. You might do it freely. If you don't have other musicians accompanying you, you are in charge of exactly how fast and slow you sing and play things. You might go, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Little pauses. That's up to you. And listen to good singers and watch how they do that. So I just need some place where I can lay my head. I'll take the first line into the second line. Pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Did you feel the scene shift there? I went to the bass low with a little bit of alternating and a few more up strums and a little more authority to it, or maybe a little bit of increase in volume. Volume is one of your, teach your guitar to sing palette elements. When you get a little louder, you get accent, but you also get a little more focus on what you got louder. So if you get the whole verse a little louder, you're telling people, it's like putting it in bold, maybe with an underline. Pay attention to this verse. I want you to hear this verse. And then, hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? There's somebody standing there, some old codger maybe in a rocking chair with a corncob pipe in his mouth, just watching the town go by. Or maybe it's a teenager who's sitting there working on his, cell phone, but it's still, hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? This is like we're taking direct action now. We're no longer just describing, I pulled in. We're actually having a conversation with somebody here. So I think, again, changing the scene a little bit behind that line, either go back to the way you started, kind of sluggish, or add a bunch more upstrums, maybe stay all in the bass, because we're talking to somebody. Maybe we want the guitar to come back a little bit here, but we don't want to, we did a little build of energy when we went to line 2. Maybe we want to keep that energy, but we want it a little quieter. So you can make your voice a little louder when you say, hey, mister, can you tell me where a man can find a bed? And as you sing that line, you can make it be conversational and let the guitar step back a little so you have room to talk. So from the top, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? There I just dropped down to straight down strums. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? But I did keep the alternating low-high going while I did those down strums, so it didn't go all the way to, hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? Because if I do that, I'm doing a same sound rhythm, which makes the thing feel busier at that spot. If I do this, hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? It still has that relaxed feeling, but you've changed the scene lighting, so to speak, on that. And the last line, he just grinned, shook my head, no was all he said. Now that's kind of the climax of this little mini song, this 1 4-line song. The answer is, hey, I'm friendly to you, buddy. Shake your hand. Can't help you. So you might decide to take it up there, or you might decide to take it way back. It's up to you, because you're the one who's, constructing this emotional map for the song the way you want it to feel when you sing it. And you might, when you're practicing, you might try it both ways and see which one jibes with your feeling for the song. Now, if you're singing at a song circle or something, and it's a song that you've hardly know and you've hardly practiced, you're not going to do a lot of emotional mapping of the song. This is talking about if you're working at a song for your own enjoyment that you're going to play a bunch of times because you just love the song, or you're going to perform it somewhere. Then it's worth taking some time to start to plan how you want it to feel as you go through it. If you're playing it in a song circle, you can still do these things and, change the scene and let it change just to keep it interesting. And, half the other people in the room may be going, boom, da, 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 boom, da, 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 da. If they are, your job, if you are, hep to some of the stuff we're talking about here, work the accents. Da 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 da. You play the accents and let the other 6 guitar players, if they're playing da 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 over and over again, let them take that, and you'll be adding a little bit of interest and texture to the whole sound that the whole room is making. So let's say, let's take it up to there. Let's see what it feels like when we get to there. And if we were doing this live, I would stop and I would say, what do you think this should this go up? Should this go down? And I would ask you all that. Let's just go through this. You're going to, by the way, you hear all this 20 seconds after I say it. So I'm not even going to ask you to text the answer in, because we'll be sitting here going like this for the 20 seconds until you actually hear it and then can answer the question. So we're going to play up to line 4. Pulled into Nazareth, sloppy with a feeling about half past dead, sloppy strums. Just need some place, open up a little, where a man might find a bed. Sorry. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned and took my hand, and no was all he said. I feel like pulling back there and letting the words carry it. So the way I did that was I just hit, this is my flying palm mute coming here. I'm hitting the bottom strings and kind of muting them and taking it away. You could call it a karate chop. Of the things we're doing, that's probably the one that's going to take more practice than some of the others, but it's really effective here. Hey, mister, can you... Oh, he just grinned and shook my hand, and no was all he said. Now you see the fake down strums in between, because I'm going 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I'm doing a fake down strum where I'm leaving out a down strum He just grinned and took my hand, and that was all he said. So here's the whole 4 lines, trying to do what we just laid out. And after I do this, I'm going to stop. If you want to jot down a few notes on what we've done here, we'll just give it a little pause for that. So, pulled into Nazareth, I was feeling about half past dead. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned, shook my hand, and no was all he said. Take a load off Annie, take a load for free. Take a load off Annie. Put the load right on me. Okay, so there's kind of a start to making an emotional map to the first verse of this song. As you go from verse to verse, because it has a lot of verses, you might want to spread out the different things we did to vary within the first verse. Maybe you do the whole first verse almost all the same way and just change that key last line at the end and do, trick number 2 and 3 in the second verse, etc., etc. So that's up to you to work on and think about how the song feels as you play through it and try different things. But right now we have a much more interesting framework of things to do to put in this song than we did if we just had all 6 strings. And I want to bring in one more of the elements that we looked at last episode, which is the cut. That's so if I'm strumming the C chord, letting my fingers flop over and relax so the notes all muffle off. So you can throw that in once in a while. Take a load off Fanny. I'm sorry, I'm doing a left hand mute there. Take a load off right hand mute. So I want you to mute with the left hand, cut off with the left hand. Take a load off Fanny. Take a load for free. Now that's, I think, much too punctuated and exaggerated for that particular line. But let's see, there was a place or two in here. Strolled into Nazareth. I was feeling about half past dead. Feeling just a half past dead. Maybe at the can of where I can lay my head. Pulled into Nazareth. I was feeling about half past dead. Because I'm doing the sloppy strums in the first line. Open it up a little. Just need some place where I can lay my head. So it's like whoop. Just need some place where whoop can lay my head. Just need some place where I can lay my head. I could do it on the G of that line leading into the line too. Just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey, mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? See, any one of those chords in those last couple lines, you could probably do that in, but don't do it everywhere, because then you're doing your same trick over and over again, and you got the wallpaper effect happening. People start wondering if you're going to do it now. So you want to kind of, some of those things that are very noticeable, you want to hit and run with them and save them for later in the song. Okay, so that's through that song, and I'm going to stop just for a moment and let you write down a few notes, if you like, about some of the things we talked about, and text me a question if you have a question, and I will just pause. Actually, I'll just kind of noodle a little for about 1 minute. actually do practice what I preach. Okay, I see no questions, and I hope you had a chance to write a couple of things down. And we have about 3 or 4 minutes left. What I want to do is I want to switch to a different song, and we're going to move from The Weight to Nights in White Satin. And we're not going to go too deep into this. And in episode 3, we're going to start with a bunch of other effects. We will not be doing exactly the same effects, but these ones that we've done in episode 1 and episode 2, we'll be adding those in all through. Those are all core, very useful effects, elements you could call them, or effects. So let's put the capo, let's just leave it right here for now. See if I can. And rhythm for this is 1. This song's really slow. There's another song that, because it's slow and the chords are kind of similar, you have to work to keep it interesting. You know, if you're a great singer, you can carry it with the voice, but we want your guitar to help your voice out in this. So I won't do that flying palm mute there, even though I kind of like it. It's like a drum beat there, but that's a tricky thing. So let's just do the bass accent. So this is in 3. Boom, da 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 da, boom, da 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 da, boom, da 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 da, boom, da 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 da. Now, if you did all the upstrums, it would be boom da 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 da, 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 and it makes it a little polka-like. But it makes it very busy. There's a lot of high rhythm density there, so I think a little more open. You're welcome, Wanda. Thank you for your appreciation of what I'm doing. I always, you put things from what you do into words, and words are fragile things. You never know who and how they're going to be interpreted. They mean to you what they mean, but do they mean something useful to the other person? So I appreciate that the ways I'm explaining these things, if they turn out to be useful, that's what we're working for. And if nothing else, you always have the video. You try to copy what you see me doing. As part of it. Gee, my mic has been drooping this whole thing. I hope we haven't lost my voice entirely. Let's see if we can tighten this up. We'll go just a hair over time here because I want to show you just a little bit. You can maybe fool around with this tune yourself this week, and when we'll start by working on it next week, and you have the chords down a little bit. So. I think what I'll do is I'll take kind of a kitchen sink approach with this, and I'll put a bunch of things in without explaining them, and it'll be kind of a place to start for next week, and we'll break it down. So. Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never meaning to send, and beauty I've always missed with these eyes before. Just what the truth is, I can't say anymore, 'cause I love you. Yes, I love you. Oh, how I love you. Now, I'll sing the first verse again as though it were the second verse. So. Nights in white satin, never reaching the end. Letters I've written, never mean its end. Beauty I've always missed with these eyes before. Just what the truth is, I can't say anymore, 'cause I love you. Yes, I love you. How I love you. And that's just opening up the first string and fretting it at the 3rd fret on the D chord. It's already at the 2nd fret. Add the pinky for the 3rd fret. Lift it up for open. So da 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 da. Those notes are all in the chord. So da 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 da. Now, if you do a big E minor, it makes like you got this one thing going on in the E minor and a whole different thing going on in the D. So play that E minor up high. And then go big again. There's a little preview of one of the things we'll talk about next week, which is moving up the neck. When you're back by the bridge, bright sound. When you're over the sound hole, kind of a medium sound. Here by the near the end of the fingerboard is where I like to strum most of the time. It's rich but also bright. But if you move up, you get a tone change. So sometimes if you have two chords the same over and over again for a little while, start at the back, move up to the middle, and up to the top. Or do the E minor back, and the D up. So there's a couple more examples of some way we can combine elements to create. It certainly creates an emotional effect in there. Now, if that's the effect you want, great. If it's not, then we'll look for other things. But the first thing is to find techniques and find elements that you can vary without having to go out and learn, 400 new fancy chords that have some kind of impact on the emotion of the song. So we'll be working on that in our next episode, which will be next Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Same bat time, same bat station. And thank you for tuning in. And write to me at Bob McNally. No, I'm sorry. Write to me at bob@folkproject.org if you have any questions. Take care and be well and stay safe.